In the peaceful and tight-knit community of a small town, the air was thick with shock and grief as news of a double murder rocked its foundations. At first, investigators believed the tragic accident to be nothing more than a terrible accident, but as they delved deeper into the case, they uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal that would send shivers down your spine. Step into the heart of darkness and uncover the shocking case and the fall of the Murdaugh Family Dynasty. It all began on June 7, 2021 at around 10 p.m. The police received 911 calls from Alex Murdaugh, reporting 2 murders at the family's hunting lodge estate in Colton County. Police from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, responded swiftly to the call. On arrival, 2 bodies were found. The first was Alex's wife, Margaret Murdaugh, and the second was his son, Paul Murdaugh, who was just 22 years old at the time. Paul was awaiting trial on charges of boating under the influence in relation to an incident with a boat in 2019 that led to the death of a 19-year-old woman. Just 3 days later, Alex's father, Randolph Murdaugh III, dies in his Hampton County home in South Carolina at the age of 81. Although his death was due to various health elements, it adds more intrigue to the case, especially because of its connection to the Murdaugh family. The small community of Islandton, South Carolina, was rocked by the brutal murders of Paul and his mother, Maggie. The family is well known in the area for their legal background and high social status, leading to intense media scrutiny and speculation about their personal lives. The case took an unexpected turn when it was revealed that Paul was actually awaiting trial for a fatal boating accident that occurred in February of 2019, where he was allegedly driving a boat under the influence, causing the death of a young woman named Mallory Beach. This revelation sparked questions about the Murdaugh family's influence and connections within the local justice system. The tranquil town of Islandton, South Carolina, was thrust into the spotlight when the heinous tragedy struck the Murdaugh family. The shocking incident saw the lives of 2 family members, 22-year-old Paul Murdaugh and his 52-year-old mother Maggie, brutally taken away in a matter of moments. The grim discovery of their lifeless bodies, riddled with bullet wounds, was made on their rural property, leaving the tight-knit community reeling with horror and disbelief. The heart-wrenching news was delivered to the husband, Alex Murdaugh, who had been away from home at the time of the murders. Upon returning to the rural property, he was met with a gruesome and traumatizing crime scene that no one could have prepared for.
At 10:07 p.m., a panic-sounding Alex Murdaugh called 911, saying he had just arrived home to find his wife of nearly 28 years, Maggie, and their son shot.
Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot, but what about your son?
Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them's moving.
The senseless and brutal killings of his son and wife left him devastated and left the entire town on edge as they grappled to make sense of the tragedy that had struck one of their own. Despite initial efforts to investigate the case, progress was slow and the murders remained unsolved for several months. However, in a major turn of events, SLED announced in September 2019 that they had taken over the investigation. This announcement provided a glimmer of hope for the Murdaugh family and the wider community, who had been left reeling from the tragic loss of 2 of their own. The involvement of SLED in the investigation signaled a new level of expertise and resources being brought to bear on the case. The agency was tasked with uncovering the truth behind the murders and bringing those responsible to justice. As the investigation continued, new details began to emerge, and the community anxiously awaited updates from law enforcement officials. The case grew and continued to captivate the nation as investigators worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind the tragic deaths of Paul and Maggie. Over the course of 2 years, SLED conducted a thorough investigation, analyzing an abundance of physical and digital evidence and interviewing numerous witnesses. Aside from witness testimony, digital evidence has also played a significant role in the case. According to court documents, investigators have obtained a trove of electronic devices and data related to the family, including cell phones, computers, and email accounts. This evidence has reportedly been instrumental in piecing together the events leading up to the murders and identifying potential suspects. One particularly intriguing piece of digital evidence is a set of surveillance videos that were recently made public. The footage shows a man, believed to be Paul Murdaugh, stumbling around a convenience store and gas station in the hours before his death. The videos have raised questions about Paul's mental state and whether he may have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of his death. The Murdaugh family of South Carolina had a long history of serving in the local legal community. with 3 generations of the family working as prosecutors for the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. Alec, a prominent attorney, was well known for representing high-profile clients, including the family of a 19-year-old killed in a hit-and-run incident involving the son of a wealthy businessman. However, the family's reputation was called into question in June 2019 when Alec's son, 22-year-old Paul, and his wife Maggie were found deceased. The slow-moving investigation into the murders, coupled with rumors and speculation surrounding the family's connections and influence in the region, created a sense of mystery and intrigue around the case. As of now, the investigation into the murders of Maggie and Paul has been put to rest, but the broader scandal surrounding the family is ongoing. While much remains unclear, the case has already left an indelible mark on the community and has become a cautionary tale about the dark underbelly of power and privilege. The Murdaugh murders have intrigued the public's attention as new developments emerge. The family's long history in the legal community and their prominent status in the region have only added a sense of mystery and wonder. In September 2021, a breakthrough in the case occurred when Curtis Edward Smith, or now commonly known as Cousin Eddie, was arrested in connection with the murders. He was a local man and distant relative to the Murdaughs, as well as one of Alec's clients and his drug dealer. He was charged with assisted suicide, among other fraud crimes. According to authorities, Smith was involved in a scheme with Alex Murdaugh to stage his own death and collect a $10 million life insurance payout he was going to leave for his other son, Buster. Curtis had a long-standing relationship with this family and claims he was being set up by Alec in suicide. Curtis has reportedly cooperated with investigators and provided evidence against Murdaugh in exchange for leniency in his own case. It's unclear at this time what role, if any, Smith may have played in the murders of Maggie and Paul. His arrest was a significant development in the case, but it also raised more questions about who was ultimately responsible for the murders. Some have speculated that the individual who hired Smith may be the true mastermind behind the killings, with a personal or professional grudge against the family. Adding to the complexity of the case was the involvement of Alec, the husband of Maggie and the father of Paul. While he initially claimed to have discovered the bodies of his wife and son in Colton County, South Carolina, he has since been implicated in the crimes and is facing a slew of charges related to insurance fraud, conspiracy, and filing a false police report. He reported the deaths to the police and initially cooperated with the investigation. It's unclear what information Murdaugh may have provided to investigators about the murders or any potential accomplices. However, over time, questions began to emerge about his role in the case, and he became the main person of interest to law enforcement officials. The arrest of Alec added a new layer of complexity to an already complicated case. It raised questions about their true motive behind the murders and whether other individuals may have been involved. It also cast a shadow over the Murdaugh family's legacy and reputation and sparked renewed interest in the various scandals and controversies that have surrounded the family over the years, such as divorce and the boating accident. Reports came to light that Maggie was preparing to file for divorce from her husband Randolph Jr. at the time of her death, and had led some to speculate that this could have been a motive for the killings. Others have pointed to rumors of a family feud or a dispute over the Murdaugh family's law practice as potential factors. Many questions remain unanswered in this case. During the Murdaugh investigation of Maggie and Paul, it was revealed that Paul had been involved in a boating accident in 2019 that left a young woman dead. Mallory Beach, a 19-year-old from Hampton County, South Carolina, was thrown from the boat during the crash and her body was found a week later. There had never been any justice for her. On June 21, 2021, just days after the murders of Paul and Maggie, the SLED announced that they were reopening the investigation into the boating accident that had killed Mallory Beach. The investigation had previously been closed without charges, but with new evidence surfacing in the wake of the Murdaugh murders, authorities were taking a fresh look. The Murdaugh family was well connected and well known in the area, and rumors began to swirl that the family had used their influence to cover up Paul's involvement in the accident. Paul was eventually charged with 3 felony counts, including boating under the influence and causing death. He was released on bond after pleading not guilty, but because of his murder, the charges were ultimately dropped, and there is still no true justice for Mallory and her family. More questions began to arise about whether the same powerful connections had protected Paul from facing consequences for other misdeeds, such as the death of Stephen Smith. It was believed that Stephen Smith, an openly gay boy, was a classmate of Paul's older brother Buster. He was found dead on the side of the road in 2015 under mysterious circumstances. It was claimed by the family that this was probably a hate crime, although authorities were calling it a hit and run despite a lack of evidence to prove so. His body was ordered to be exhumed during these other investigations since it came out that the Murdaugh boys might have had something to do with his death. I know my son was beaten to death. and I know that somebody knows who did it and why they did it," Sandy says, "and I just pray that they will find it in their heart to come forward." Sandy Smith. Another death connected to the family was Gloria Satterfield. Gloria was the family estate housekeeper and was very close to the family. She had been with the family for so long that she practically raised Paul as her own. The two were very close. She had an apparent accident at the house where she tripped over the family dogs and subsequently fell down the stairs. It was never reported to the coroner, and an autopsy was never done due to the ruling of death by natural causes. However, SLED opened an investigation into Gloria, and it was determined that her injuries were inconsistent with injuries sustained in a trip and fall accident, the coroner said. A wrongful death claim was then filed against the Murdaugh family, and with further investigation, it was later found out that Alex Murdaugh stole and hid the settlement money from Gloria's family. Satterfield family lawyers thankfully were able to recover the $7.5 million that were stolen and rightfully given to her children and the family. This case continues to capture national attention and spark intense speculation and debate. Some have pointed to the family's political connections and history of privilege as evidence of corruption and malfeasance, while others have cautioned against jumping to conclusions and urged patience as the investigation comes to a close. The murders and the broader scandal surrounding the family have highlighted the deep-seated issues of power, wealth, and privilege that often go hand in hand with crimes in their investigation. However, power and wealth can only get you so far. Finally, in July 2022, Alex Murdaugh was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife and son Maggie and Paul. His trial went on from January 25th, 2023 to March 2nd. The jury only needed 3 hours to find him guilty on all counts. Alex Murdaugh will spend the rest of his life behind bars.